Presidential and legislative elections got underway on Wednesday in Democratic Republic of Congo. Voters in the capital Kinshasa and in the eastern city of Goma waited outside polling stations, but delays were reported in several towns due to absent equipment and voter lists. Ngoyi Mdundu arrived early to vote in Kinshasa.
We've been here since 5 a.m, but so far nothing has started. We don't understand. We're waiting here for them. We're not leaving until they start.
At stake is not just the legitimacy of the next administration. Congolese election disputes often spark violent unrest with potentially far-reaching consequences. Presidential candidate Martin Fayulu branded the country's general election as total chaos and said that while the vote was well organized in the upmarket Gombe district in the capital where he voted, it was not the case in the rest of the country.
Seni has said there are 71,000 polling stations. There have to be 71,000 polling stations for people to be able to vote. And if there are polling stations where people don't vote, we won't accept these elections.
In the eastern cities of Goma and Beni, some people struggled to find their names on voter lists, which were only made available at their polling stations on Wednesday morning, according to Reuters eyewitnesses.
I came very early in the morning because I wanted to know which office I was going to vote in. I looked for my name, but so far haven't found it. My name is Nzoli Kasareka, and I didn't find it on the doors of all the polling stations. My name isn't there. It's not too clear. They're hiding something from us. I can read, but I can't find my name. What about those who can't read? They'll be more and more lost.
In Bunia, also in eastern Congo, security forces fired warning shots to disperse protesters after a voting center was vandalized and kits destroyed, a Reuters reporter said. For months, Congo's National Election Commission has insisted it would deliver a free and fair vote. But independent observers and critics flagged irregularities they say will jeopardize the legitimacy of the results. About 44 million Congolese are registered to take part in the voting, which also includes regional ballots. 4 provisional results are expected by December 31st. Kenya and the European Union moved closer to sealing an economic partnership agreement, officials said on Monday. The agreement would grant the East African nations exports duty-free status and unlimited access to the bloc. Kenya's Trade Minister, Rebecca Miano.
Today's agreement heralds a new era where Kenyan goods gain immediate and permanent duty and quota-free access to the European market.
Both sides had initialed a draft deal in June after 7 months of negotiations. The EU is one of Kenya's biggest export markets. Last week, the deal was approved by the European Union Council. It will now be presented to the parliaments of both sides for ratification before it comes into force. Kenya's President, William Ruto.
I am particularly happy that this agreement we are signing today leaves the door open, and I say wide open, for our EAC partners to join into this agreement so that together as a region we can benefit from the economies of scale, and Europe can equally benefit from the economies of scale in our part of the world.
EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the agreement made Kenya a pioneer.
You're showing how to move forward. We encourage the other Eastern African countries to join this economic partnership agreement. They can only benefit from the regional integration. And of course, it is here in the region important also amongst yourselves to open the markets.
Kenya is a major exporter of tea, coffee, flowers, fruits and vegetables to the EU, which accounts for 21% of its overall exports. The country buys machinery, pharmaceuticals and other chemicals from the EU. Bilateral trade between the two stood at a total of 3.3 billion euros in 2022, EU and Kenya government data showed. making it the East African nation's second largest trade partner.
A record number of people are expected to go hungry in West and Central Africa next year, the United Nations has warned. 49.5 million, a rise of 4% due to a combination of high food prices, climate change and conflict. Millions have been displaced by insurgent violence in the Sahel region, in addition to multiple ongoing conflicts in Democratic Republic of Congo. Olo Sib, a senior research advisor at the UN's World Food Programme, said 80% of those currently affected by food insecurity live in conflict zones.
We also witness the impacts of climate change. For instance, this year there have been prolonged periods of halted rainfall in certain areas, resulting in significant crop losses for local farmers.
A WFP regional security analysis said more than 2 out of 3 households in West and Central Africa cannot afford healthy diets. It said the cost of a daily nutritious diet in countries like Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger is 110% higher than the daily minimum wage.
Economic challenges such as soaring prices, inflation and currency devaluation in some countries have made it exceedingly tough for many households to regularly access food.
Sib warned that without intervention, the situation could deteriorate further in certain areas, as over 2.6 million people were at risk of falling into famine.
Conflict defined 20-year-old Ishara Bahati Yassin's childhood. Time and again, he was forced to flee his home in eastern Congo. Now he lives in a crowded camp for displaced people in Goma, sharing a tent with 3 brothers. He will be voting for the first time in the December 20th presidential election and says he will bring years of frustration to the ballot box.
I want the candidate we vote for in 2023 to be the one who can see the hardship in which we are living in Kibumba, in Rugari, in Masisi. I want him to work so we can find peace again and return to our villages and live quietly.
Congo's election is dominated by issues including the economy, corruption and mining. But for many in the East, President Felix Tshisekedi's failure to ease decades of violence is the biggest concern. Under Tshisekedi's watch, the rebel group M23 has carried out a campaign of killings, rape and kidnapping in response to an army clampdown. Attacks by armed groups have killed thousands and displaced nearly 7 million people. Dino Matani, a security analyst, says insecurity means people will be unable to vote.
It will be impossible to hold elections in large parts of North Kivu, which is one of the major provinces of the country. And that will, of course, impact the credibility of the election itself.
It's still unclear just how far insecurity will affect voting. The Electoral Commission last week asked the presidency to provide aircraft urgently to distribute voting materials in hard-to-reach areas. Despite the security challenges, Yassin is determined to cast his ballot, saying that he would like to vote in someone who will bring change and development to the country. Tshisekedi faces a challenge from veteran opposition politician Martin Fayulu, who claims to have been the true winner 5 years ago, and from Moise Katumbi, a former mining magnate.